Women at Work and Breaking Glass Ceilings, in conversation with my colleague Siddharth Zarabi, Managing Editor at Business Today Television. I'd like to welcome on stage Suman Mishra, CEO, Mahindra Last Mile Mobility, Ashima Goyal, Member, RBI's Monetary Policy Committee, Jyoti Deshpande, CEO, Viacom 18 Media, and Daisy Chittilapilly, President, Cisco India and SAARC. A very warm welcome to all of you. Big round of applause, please. Over to you, Siddharth.
Hello and a very warm welcome once again to everyone to this fantastic high-powered panel. Since the event is about the most powerful women in business, there couldn't be a bigger panel really. And let's come to the point straight away with that big question in terms of we always talk about ease of doing business in India, and I'm going to ask all my panelists here about the ease for women to do business in India. And I'll start with you, Daisy, on that question. Have things changed? Is it easier for women to do business in India today?
Yeah, it is. But we have a long way to go. Right? So it's a mixed bag.
Okay. That was a short and quick answer. I think we've set it off on a rapid fire note. I'm coming to you, Jyoti, on that same question.
I don't think it's more difficult for women to do business in India than it is for men.
Okay. Ashima, and this is not a monetary policy question.
So we are used to pushing so hard that things go through, right?
Okay.
As the obstacles reduce, so it becomes very easy.
And finally you.
Yeah, I'll say for the women on this stage, it's easy to do business in India because we are here for a reason. But in general, it's way better now than it was, let's say, 10 years back, 20 years back, 30 years back. So it's improving. But as she mentioned, it's a far long way to
since
go.
you say it's better than it was 10 years back, in your estimation, why is it better? Is it a cultural change or has something else changed?
This is a very good question. Of course, there is a broad awareness now that having women or being more inclusive is definitely good for the business. Okay, so this is a generally now well accepted in the corporate world. The fact that there are so many ESG investors who are insisting that there be a diverse panel, there be a diverse boardroom has also helped. But also it is the sheer number of, if you keep pushing at a thing for quite some period of time. So the first set of women who came and, shattered the glass ceiling, if you may, then this makes it easier for the next generation and the next generation. So I think all these things combined, the growing awareness, but also the sheer magnitude of effort that has gone behind it for the generations of women have probably made it easier.
Okay, they probably made it easier, and perhaps the greater advent of private capital, private sector entrepreneurship has also made a big difference. Daisy, I'm coming to you, and before I ask you a question, I just want to tell you and our audience here that a couple of years ago there was a study by Grant Thornton which spoke about and tried to get to know the number of women CEOs. The sample size was around 10,000 respondents across 26 countries, and that said that India was ahead of the world then, and I'm sure the numbers are similar now. 39% of those who had been surveyed had women CEOs in India versus 31% being the global average. So would you agree with that? Is that a feature of large corporates or mid-sized corporates in India where they have put women at the forefront who are leading those businesses?
I think we've had strong role models, right? Many things. For example, banking is a great place where we've had CEOs very early, even 10, 15 years ago. Politics, we've had leaders even 30 years ago. So yes, directionally yes, but you have to contrast that with participation, which is a different story, right? Pre-COVID, we were 17, 18% women's participation in the Indian labor force. Today, about 13, 14%. So, yes, we are making a lot of progress in many ways, but in some spaces, we've got a lot of work to do.
Do you think the COVID-induced reduction is just an aberration or is it systemic?
Yeah, but it takes a long time to move the needle from 13 to 18, and for it to have dropped back to 13 to 14 is problematic. So we have to get back to it. It sets us back. And even at 18, we are not really the top end of town in the world. So it's a setback. It's a setback, and we have to work harder to get back to 18 first and then get to the 30 and the 50 that we want to eventually be at.
Okay, that's a good point. Beyond the headline CEO appointments and, the real powerful business leaders like those who are here on this panel, the point that Daisy is making, COVID has also caused a lot of the women in the workforce to drop out from the labor force. Jyoti, I have another bit of statistics which talks about the number of women across sectors, and this is based on LinkedIn data. So there is a sort of upper crust bias to that. And please bear with me, audience, there isn't a lot of data that is available for other sectors. So I'll go with this. Education has 30% women in leadership roles. Real estate comes at 14%. Media, the sector that you represent, is somewhere in between at 23%. The India Today group, Business Today, and all of you know in the India Today group is home to some of the most powerful women in the media business, anchors, people who are watched by millions of people every day. Given that context, how good is the media sector for women professionals, Jyoti?
That's a great question. I believe I'm the first woman CEO of a Big Four media company. So,
wow, so that definitely deserves a...
So I guess there are a lot of women in the creative side of the media business, but you still see in middle management, you see a lot of women, but right at the top, you see very few women leaders in business, even in the media. So one of the things that sort of resonated from the previous session is that sisterhood. You know, the fact that they were cheering for other women, the fact that they were happy that another girl was, going
well
for more. And I think that is the kind of momentum that we are trying to create, which will see the change sort of 10 years from now. So in my, for example, in the business that I run a number of business. And one of the businesses that I run, I have 70% women leaders, all on merit.
Wow.
And I think that will pave the way for future women CEOs.
That's a great bit of data that you've shared with us. One quick follow-up. You spoke about sisterhood. May I ask you that if there was another woman CEO amongst the big four, apart from you, would it be sisterhood or would you be competing for market share tooth and nail with her?
See, I think we already do that, whether it's sisterhood or brotherhood. You talk to competition, you keep competition closer. So there is that, chat. Business is business. Sisterhood, is about camaraderie and being happy for someone else's success. But however, you will chase your own outcomes.
Perhaps building better, empathetic organizations, but competing in the field of business. Ashima, this is a question which I don't know if you've been asked, but at least in this context, I think it would be a fair one. You would agree. Unless I'm wrong, I don't think there's been a governor of the RBI who's from the better gender, if I may put it that way. Why is that? Is it because economics is a male-dominated profession, or is it because there are a lot of bureaucrats who run it? Explain to me why that would be the case.
And I think next to we had a Pakistani lady who was the governor of Pakistan, so they bet us to it.
Just keep the mic closer.
Yeah, so Pakistan has bet us to it. They had a lady who was central bank governor. And I think it is an issue of participation. You have a larger number of women, a pool, because there is a hierarchy, it has to go up. So we've had 2 deputy governors who were women, and it's progressing. Maybe, and India has broken a lot of these top, political, finance ministers are women today.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I think that's a very good point. In 2014, and I don't know how many people in the audience realize this, that was the first government, the union government, which had the maximum number of women ministers in the Council of Ministers, including 6 with cabinet rank, and like Ashima pointed out, the finance minister and the external affairs minister were both women. So, and even if you look at the current Lok Sabha, it has the highest number of women MPs amongst all the Lok Sabhas that we have had. Suman, I'm coming to you on the challenge really that you have faced, and I want you to sort of go back into your memories in terms of breaking through the glass ceiling. The good and the bad, the best and the worst.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. See, I think most of the women here who are in professional careers have faced various versions of this kind of truth, varying from maybe say microaggression, discrimination, bias, to extreme support and mentorship. Yeah. If you didn't have the support and mentorship from some, it's kind of very difficult to build that progression in your career. So perhaps maybe I'll give you like 2 extreme instances without trying to name any companies, just as an example. I think I remember it was my...
This is a business event. You can name companies. You won't mind.
No, thanks. no career limiting moves here. I guess first I was fresh out of B school working for a company in Chicago, this was, and in a large room with lots of men. I was fresh, and this person, this very, very senior person who was supposed to be the big shot, he looks at me and says, "What are you doing in operations and manufacturing? This is supposed to be a men's place, And I don't know, maybe he was drunk, but whatever it was, this was a comment, it's just fresh out of B school. I was so scarred for life, and this, the first time in America, somebody is saying this, and why have I chosen the operations practice? Maybe something is wrong with me." And on the far extreme, today when I run a large operations and manufacturing company, thank you very much if that person is hearing here, I have seen no more, those questions are no longer asked. Why are you here? Of course, there was a lot when I became the first professional women CEO in automotive in India. There were a lot of those questions, what are you doing in manufacturing? But those have stopped conclusively. But I have seen extreme version of sponsorship and support now from the current organization, which I think everybody knows where I work, to the point that even microaggressions are not tolerated. So there was this meeting, I remember, it's a vague. Now people don't come out so ostensibly and tell you, what are you doing here? They may think about it, but they don't. So there was this meeting, and I'm sitting, and there's a supplier who is presenting to us, a large supplier, and me and my subordinates and so on. At some point, I don't know, the guy lost his shit, but he turns around and says, "For a woman like you, I will do all this." And I'm giving him business. He's saying, "For a pretty woman like you, I will do this." Oh my God, he did not know what was coming. So that comment, and the meeting was virtual that time during the COVID time. So it stopped. And then when I mentioned it briefly to my boss lost his shit, and he was called up and down from all the hierarchy of Mahindra went against this vendor and called him out so hard. And this was not something I had asked them to do, but just to demonstrate that we will not tolerate this kind of behavior from anybody. They themselves turned around and gave him an extremely hard time. I mean, to this day, he cannot look at me in my face. So I'm just saying these 2 extremes, these are 2 extremes of my same experience in the so-called manufacturing/operations world. And they really both coexist. So it's also about how much I have obviously become stronger over time, and I didn't need to talk to a counselor, why am I here? Am I really made a mistake in my career? I don't need to do that. But I also can stand up for myself and say, this is inappropriate, please, stop making these kind of comments or statements. So both exist. First one is very irritating, but the second support, wherever you see it, I think those organizations will definitely progress women.
I also want this to be a sort of a learning session for all the young people here and those who are watching us on our platforms. Daisy, how did you break through not just the glass ceiling in terms of reaching the corner office, but any of the bias that you might have faced as a woman executive? I mean, as much as you could reveal in terms of the details, and how you did that is what might be of value to our viewers.
I think it's a 3-step plan. skill up because you have to be good at what you are. And if you're a woman who started in her careers like mid-90s in sales and information technology, you better be good at what you do. Second is speak up.
Probably be doubly better.
Yeah, probably. When you start out, it will be a lot better to be taken seriously. Second is speak up, because there'll be lots of naysayers who come your way. There'll be lots of support too. But when the naysayers do show up, speak up very boldly. And you can use grace and diplomacy and all of that, but speak up. And still you'll get knocked down a few times, so get up. Right? So I think that's the 3-point plan, and not all of it is out of the equation even today. Because, you know, we still have enough inequity in our system. So I'm sure everybody who walks out, all institutions and organizations have got good cultures and values and policies, but people who are in the field in India will encounter, to the point that she was making, that you will find people who have still not progressed to that stage. So
Your 3-point plan, Jyoti. And remember, people will try and emulate you what you would suggest.
I don't know if I have a 3-point plan, but I remember that I started my career, I'm like 30 years plus in the media and entertainment industry. And in the movie business, all those years ago, I've encountered many a producer who would have pleasant chats, talk about their films, give me all the details, and all the paraphernalia information, and then sort of wait or pause as though someone else would come and make the deal. I just need to sort of make the notes and sort of hand it out to somebody else who will actually come and close the deal. And I think I should credit my previous boss and the owner of the previous company that I used to work with, who sort of stood up and said, no, the buck stops with her. She's a far better negotiator than I am. So you can have a cup of tea with me, but you got to close the deal with her. So I think having that backing, rather than someone else coming and sort of fueling these kind of behavioral patterns is very important. But I think if I look at my whole career, it is the sum total of the outcomes I have moved.
Okay.
I'm very outcome focused. I don't get distracted with anecdotes, someone trying to bully you or someone trying to, I fight my own battles, and I think my moving those needles on those outcomes is what has got me here.
That's a good point. And one quick question to Ashima. And before that, I think women don't fight battles only in boardrooms, in their office, but they fight a constant battle at home, and perhaps that doesn't get recognized equally. Ashima, you are an academic, and you also have a role in one of the most important and sensitive jobs, which perhaps not everyone is comfortable with understanding, which is interest rate policy. We leave that for some other time. We won't talk about that. As an academic, what would be your 3-point plan to all those who are listening to you in terms of how they can grow up and be successful women in their own right?
I think the session before us, those girls were so happy doing what they're doing. I don't think they noticed any ceiling anywhere, glass or otherwise. So to really be happy to enjoy what you're doing is very important. But I think as I started out many years ago, about 30 years back, I'm used to being in groups where I'm the only woman, or there's maybe one other woman. So in such a situation, most women tend to sort of copy what others are doing. All of us learn by copying, and we see what people who know more than us. But that is very dangerous. And I think it's easier for women now. You have to learn to be yourself. You have to look inside yourself, develop your skills, identify something you enjoy doing and do it better and better than anyone else. For me, it was ideas as an academic, and I think even in policy, understanding the context, the ideas that work there. So all this is, because you can do well in your career, but to really reach the top, to be at this decision-making level in policy, or to be a CEO, or to be you need to have something extra. And that you will find by developing your own personality. And it's not necessarily being feminine. You can be very aggressive as a woman, but be yourself. Don't copy anybody else.
And being yourself is perhaps the best mantra that we could have got from this power-packed panel. I don't have extra time on my hands right now, but I know this conversation would have perhaps continued for another hour. I'm going to thank all of you here for your time and patience. And with that, it's a wrap on this session.